a brand new, very old chess computer. So it's new to me, but this was made probably in the early 90s, and I found it for very, very cheap at a thrift store. And I'm going to play it, and it plays pawn to d4 on the first move. And I will have my work cut out for me. This thing I read online, because it didn't come with a manual, but it has an entire megahertz. Isn't that amazing? A megahertz. But these can actually be quite tricky to play against. And you can see here, this one has a feature that I think is a first from the chess computers I've been playing. It has a chess clock. So I have 30 minutes and the machine has 30 minutes for all the moves for the game. So it's a rapid game. These can be quite tough to beat, these things, but luckily I have some experience, and if you've seen the other videos, you know that my weapon of choice is the Budapest defense. And I have actually beaten quite a number of chess computers using this gambit here. And yeah, I've made quite a number of videos on it. I made a video explaining the gambit. I made a video with the very famous Rubinstein game, where it was introduced in about 100 years ago. And the machine is now out of book. The first moves, it played instantly. But now it has to calculate, and it plays pawn from d4, takes pawn on e5. So it calculated that move, and that is the correct move. That's the best move in the position. So it was able to come up with a good move here. So I will play knight from f6, not to e4, that's also a variation, but I believe the stronger move is to go to g4 here. So the knight is now attacking the pawn. And we can see bishop to f4, which I believe is the strongest variation, and we can see knight to f3, the Adler variation, which is also very playable and gives white a small advantage if white plays very correctly from now on. The thing is, okay, so let's see, d1 to d5. Oh my god, that is a mistake. So it does protect the pawn on e5, but the queen is super exposed, and we may be able to take great advantage of that. So usually when your opponent, be it a machine, be it silicon or flesh, when your opponent develops the queen as the first piece, when they develop the queen very early, what you want to do is very, very often to attack the queen and develop your pieces with force, winning what we call tempi. So I will play pawn from c7 to c6. This move attacks Her Majesty, who will now have to move again. It also prepares a later move from d7 to d5, taking control in the center with my pawns. So that would be defended by the c6 pawn. Also, I now can play moves such as queen to a5, check, queen to b6, with possible attack on b2 or even queen to c7 with a possible attack on e5. So I am already very, very happy in this position. So the queen will probably have to go somewhere, like maybe e4, where she will be attacking the knight. I am not overly concerned with that. I will have to defend the knight. d5 to e4. d5 to e4. Exactly as we thought. Now I can play queen a5 check, maybe bishop d2 blocking the check, and queen takes pawn on e5, queen takes knight. No, so I would, okay, so that doesn't work. Then I could play a move such as pawn to h4, defending the knight. Okay, so the knight is, of course, a little bit misplaced if we play a move such as h5. We can see the machine play pawn to h3, and then the knight would have to move. But in that case, I think we will have plenty of options. We could also consider knight takes on f2 to just get the king out. With a very, like a piece sacrifice. That would be the sacrifice of both a piece and of a pawn. Now first we will play pawn from h7 to h5 to protect the knight here. And maybe the computer actually is doing quite well. Maybe my move pawn to c6, maybe that was not the best way to go about it. Because moves such as pawn to f4 or pawn to d5, well, the machine can play en passant with check. So it's very hard for me to attack the queen again. So I think h3 is the move to play here. b1 to c3. Okay, so it develops this knight here. So knight to c3. So now, of course, I would like to play something like maybe queen to c7, threatening to capture the pawn, but I don't like that. We can see bishop to f4 attacking my queen, and I take care of my lady. So I do not want her to get in any sort of trouble at this point in the game. Then I could play a move like bishop to c5, attacking f2. That is a very principled idea in the Budapest defense. So then they will probably play pawn to e3, and then the question becomes how I can develop my attack further. But I think bishop to c5 here, just attacking on f2. So that means that if they play pawn to h3, I can play knight takes f2. So they will probably have to play pawn to e3. I say they. Maybe we should refer to this piece of plastic and silicon and rubber as it. We don't actually know what the correct way to refer to this is. I think I will say they. That's my habit. Because I anthropomorphize these machines so quickly. I very quickly begin to think as if I'm playing some kind of person. I can even see they have like different styles, almost different personalities, these chess computers. So I think I will go with they for this one. Or maybe I should go with he, since it is Kasparov. It is endorsed by Kasparov. C1 to E3. We see, okay. C1 to E3. Now that is a pretty poor move, I think, because it allows me to double these pawns. So it's protecting against me coming in here on F2 and capturing the pawn. But the big problem here is that I can now play knight. And I think I will want to play with the knight. Or do I want to play with the bishop instead to capture the bishop? So there's only one good move in response to any of those, and that is pawn takes, pawn recaptures, because if queen recaptures, they will lose their queen. I have two attackers there. And my idea with knight takes is that I will then no longer have any problems with this knight being kicked around with a move like pawn to h3, which I really think my esteemed Silicon opponent here should have played at some point. No, but I will play knight takes. It's I like the knights better than the bishops, and that knight could also get in a little bit of trouble anyways. So it is true that I have sacrificed a pawn. I have gambited a pawn in the beginning of this game. However, it is also the case that the machine will play pawn takes knight and will have tripled pawns. Now, so those pawns are not really doing their job, and they are not worth a whole point each. Probably only the most forward one is worth a whole point. So I am pretty sure I have an okay position here. And the machine seems to be thinking a lot about a very obvious move. There is only one thing you could possibly do here, which is to recapture the knight. There are no checks, there are no discoveries, there's no way, and you can't capture with the queen. So and I'm just testing. It doesn't think it's my move. It is aware that the knight is on e3, and it's just spending a lot of time thinking if it should capture with the queen and lose the queen to the bishop, or if it should capture with the pawn and have a bad position, but still have a queen and still be up a pawn. And this is very interesting that it chooses this moment to spend so much time. F2 to e3, the only move in the position, and you can now see the tripled pawns. Trip. And with the queen, look at how this king, pawn, queen, pawn. It's a poor man's Aljechin gun, if you know what an Aljechin's gun is. Now I could castle, I could try to get my knight or my pawn involved in the game. I think I like castling quite a bit. So I think castles here, because after I have carefully constructed a castle, I do have this small weakness in this H pawn, but I am now ready to try and attack this bizarre construction that my esteemed opponent has constructed here in the center of the board. And I can play moves like pawn to f5, protected by the rook. We could see pawn takes pawn en passant, which some people believe is forced. A1 to d1, that is a good move. That is a very, very sensible move by my opponent. Activating the rook that was doing nothing at all, nothing at all, nothing at all, and putting on the open d file here. So now the rook is really doing something. So I am still thinking about moves like pawn to f5. So there is no queen d5 check because I have that under control with the c6 pawn. Let's say pawn to f5, pawn takes pawn en passant, queen takes pawn, threatening all sorts of nasty checkmates here. It is the sacrifice. I am sacrificing yet another pawn doing this. I could also play rook to e8, simply trying to build up an attack against these pawns here. But knight to f3 will maybe meet that adequately. So let's say pawn to f5, pawn takes pawn, queen takes pawn, knight f3. Stop all the nasties. But then maybe pawn to d5, getting ready to get out with the... Yes, I think I will try to move with a lot of force here, even though I am sacrificing a second pawn. So maybe this is way too risky, but I really want to get my pieces flowing. I really want to be able to have some activity, and my opponent will have a long time before they can castle, you see. And I want to be able to attack them very quickly, so that they will not be able to get their king to safety. You see, this bishop here will have a hard time getting into the game, because machine cannot play this e-pawn forward to allow it to get in like this. So we'll have to get in this on this other diagonal here, the f183 diagonal. But if you play a move like pawn to g5, you may weaken the f2 square even further. But I think I may not have played this so well. e4 to f4, it declines, capturing en passant. Well, now we must punish this machine if it is unwilling to capture en passant. That is very close to blasphemy, I would say. Now, can we play a move like queen to b6? I think that has a lot of potential. It attacks p2, it attacks e3, and I'm not sure what the machine could even really do against that. Because we are very much fighting against this knight as well. Because with queen to b6, an attempt like knight a4, forking the bishop and the queen, can be met with, for instance, queen a5 check, queen b4 check, or bishop b4 check. So I really like this move. So queen to b6. Queen to b6 here. And we are neglecting development a little bit. We are playing this game in a very funky fashion. In a fabulously funky fashion, we are playing this game. Playing with the pawns in a particularly fabulous, funky fashion. But how will we develop these guys? How will we develop these guys? The knight can come to a6, could be okay, and can go via c4, maybe to e6. That could be a future for this nebulous knight. Let's see, c3 to a4. So that is the move we were contemplating. But if I play bishop b4, the knight may have to go back, but we will of course lose a little bit of tempi. If I play knight a5, the knight will have to go back, but we don't have any follow-up move. If I play queen to b4, the knight will still have to go back, and we can play queen takes b2. So I think queen to b4 is a pretty tough move to meet for our opponent. This is of course check, but if the knight doesn't block the check on c3, what happens? Well, what happens is that we will simply go ahead and capture this knight. So I think we will see knight to c3, and then queen takes b2 probably, winning back our pawn and attacking the knight once more. But the game is far from over. Let's see what our opponent comes up with. I don't really think any other move will do here. If you move the king, I capture the knight. If you block with the rook, I capture the knight. But I am not really doing a good job of showcasing the chess principles. If you are a regular on the channel, first of all, thank you for being a regular on the channel, and also you know that I am very big on the chess principles, and yeah, I have committed some crimes against the chess principles. Yes, we see knight on a4 to c3, blocking the check, and we will go ahead and capture the pawn with the queen. Queen takes b2. Like so. Now we are attacking the knight. The knight is not defended. If it moves, we can play bishop b4 check. And if it doesn't move, it will have to be defended, but I'm not sure how you would do that. You could maybe play very ugly move rook d3. Then I may have queen a1 check. Can get pretty nasty. Pretty nasty. But we don't have all our forces. So we are playing in a fabulous and funky fashion, but our forces fall behind the lines. You see the bishop, the knight, and the rook are shook and hiding in the corner. d1 to d3, so it does protect the knight with the rook. Like so. We may, in this position, we may want to play queen a1 check. Or how about queen c1 check? If rook blocks, then queen takes knight. If knight blocks, the knight will be maybe in a bit of a pickle. But I think also we should try developing these pieces here. Because I really want my forces to flow forward. The forces must flow forward for our fabulous and funky fashion of play style to succeed, I believe. So I think I will play knight to a6. Simply saying to white here, you don't have any moves. What are you going to do? I guess knight to f3 by my opponent is only, or maybe pawn to a3 to stop knight b4, but I can capture that. So my forces are a bit clumsy, but white's forces are very, very clumsy. I wanted to do some alliteration, some awesome alliteration with the word clumsy, but CL, that's like, I know clandestine, but I don't know what that means. What does clandestine means? F4 to C5, F4 to G5, rather. So that does attack the H-pawn. I must say that's not really a huge concern for me. Does it threaten anything else in particular? I wouldn't say that it did. This knight has no good squares. It cannot jump to e4. It cannot jump to d4. So I think that I will go ahead and play a6 to b4, knight b4, attacking the rook that is currently defending the knight. And I will say I can also come in with knight c2 check. I can do so much what what can my opponent really do in this position? If queen takes h5, knight takes rook check, e takes d3, knight takes queen takes knight on c3. Yeah, so I think we are about to cash in on our positional advantage. It's very tough to attack our king, even though the light squares look like they are very weak. We do control d5 with c6 and the light squared bishop, which would roam freely on the light squares. Well, it is trapped because it's trapped because we tricked the machine into tripling the pawn. It's trapped because of a trick. It's trapped because of a tripling trick. Yeah, so now how will you try to get out of this, Kasparov? Okay, g5 to h5. Queen takes h5. Or takes h5. Yes. And now we are ready to just absolutely demolish this piece of plastic and silicon. Knight on b4 captures rook on d3 with check to His Majesty. That is check. So yeah, that is check, but okay. So there is only one move to play here, I guess, and that is pawn takes, and then queen takes on c3, and yeah, this is one of these situations where you can really see the difference between man and machine, or human and machine, I should say, because like if you were in this position, I captured your rook with check, would you consider too many moves? Except from pawn takes, you can go with the king to f2. That's not a legal move. So let's see, e2 to d3. It does capture. e2 takes d3. Now the queen on b2 captures on c3. That is check again. And we are now up a lot of material. So we have queen for queen, they cancel out, bishops cancel out. This knight and this bishop are roughly equivalent, so we have a rook for a rook, and we have a surplus of exactly one rook here. We are up a rook, but of course on the back rank it doesn't count for anything. So now we have a material advantage, this rook. We want now to utilize that. That is by absolutely mobilizing our forces in awesome fashion. Otherwise it doesn't do anything. e1 to f2. e1 to f2. Unless, of course, we can checkmate, because I think queen d2, queen takes e3 is pretty close to checkmate. So queen to c3, queen to d2, and it will king will have to go to g3, I believe, because if you block the check, I capture on e3 with check, and well, I capture on e3 with check anyways, no matter what happens. But maybe we can end this game with this bishop delivering check, or even checkmate, by moving the d-pawn, discovering a check here on the light squares after having moved this pawn. I actually had a game like that once against a different computer, actually, and this is like 7 years ago on the channel. But that video is called something like Man versus Machine or something, where I'm pretty sure I delivered checkmate, or like a very important check, by moving the d-pawn and then exposing a check from the bishop. Let's see if we get something similar. Let's see if we get something similar. So g1 to e2. No, can't move like that. So now I actually want to capture with the bishop, because if I capture with the queen, the king will have to go to e1. But then maybe that's okay. Queen takes e3, king e1, bishop b4, check, king d1 with the queen here. Queen takes d3, check, king c1, queen back to d2, king b1, queen d1, check, king b2, and where is the knockout blow there? If I play bishop takes e3, I think actually that is worth. I think queen takes e3, and there is only one legal move, king back to e1. I was thinking bishop b4. I can also play queen f2 check, but that doesn't seem as strong. Bishop b4 check, king to d1, and here of course I don't need queen takes d3 because I have a much better move. And can you see what the move is? The move that will probably, unless I am very mistaken, be the last move of the game. Queen from e3 to d2, checkmate. And here it says end, because that is the end of the game, and that is how a humble YouTuber by the name of ASMR Chess beat the mighty Kasparov. Thanks for watching this video. If you're new to the channel, there are plenty more. If you're a regular, thanks for being a regular. I hope I will see you in the next video regardless. Thanks for watching.